Whispers Around the World, a Heal Our World book from SufferingWell. Chapter 4, Growing Pains. It was a few days after the first meeting, and Yuri was still riding the high of her friends' enthusiasm about the How Initiative. She knew that the project would take commitment and dedication, but she sensed they were all up for the challenge. Already, the three of them had begun talking about which countries they might pray for, with ideas ranging from distant nations like China, her choice, to closer ones like Mexico. Yuri couldn't help but feel hopeful. Beth Ann adjusted her reading glasses and studied the sheet of paper in front of her, tapping her pen thoughtfully against the desk. Across from her, Yuri sat, a hopeful expression on her face. The first meeting of the group had been successful, and they wanted to open the next meeting to others. "So," Beth Ann began, glancing up, "you want the notice to say what exactly?" Yuri smiled, tucking a strand of silver hair behind her ear. "Just something simple. Maybe, join us for the How Initiative prayer group. Let's come together to pray for our world and find healing in our community." She paused, her eyes meeting Beth Ann's. "Something like that?" Beth Ann nodded, jotting down a few notes. "All right, I can work with that. How about," she read as she wrote, "the How Initiative, healing our world through prayer. All are welcome to join us in this community effort to seek peace and strength together. Wednesday at 6 p.m. in the community room." Yuri's face lit up. "Oh, that's perfect, Beth Ann. Thank you." Beth Ann gave a small smile, surprised at the warmth spreading through her. She'd started out feeling a little irritated at the interruption, but now she found herself strangely glad to have the company. She turned to the computer, designing the announcement, and clicked print. As the printer hummed to life, Beth Ann leaned back in her chair. "You know," she said, almost to herself, "I was watching the news a few nights ago, and it just felt overwhelming. Everything was so bleak. War, fires, all kinds of disasters. It makes you wonder sometimes, you know?" Yuri nodded, her face softening. "I do know. It's easy to feel like the world is just one big mess, isn't it?" Beth Ann reached for the printed sheet, smoothing it out and handing it to Yuri. "It is, and I found myself wondering if God even cares anymore. Like, why would he let things get this bad?" She shook her head, staring down at the desk. "But then I thought of your group and the How Initiative, and it hit me. Maybe, just maybe, he's still trying to show his love by moving people to pray, to care. Like he hasn't given up, even if it feels like the world has." Yuri's face lit up with a knowing smile. "I think you're on to something there, Beth Ann. In fact, that's a big part of what we believe in the How group. We're not just praying for ourselves, we're praying for everyone. The world is suffering, but if God can call even a few of us to pray, maybe we can start to feel his love reaching through the brokenness." Beth Ann's fingers drummed against the desk as she processed this. "I used to believe that a long time ago, but things happened, and well, let's just say I gave up on it." She cleared her throat, glancing away. "But I think there might be something to what you're saying. I mean, I don't know if I believe all the way yet, but it makes sense, in a way." Yuri nodded, her gaze calm. "I understand. We all go through seasons where we struggle to believe, but God's love is so persistent. Even if we've given up, he hasn't given up on us. That's what keeps me going, really." Beth Ann raised an eyebrow, a faint smile playing at her lips. "Sounds like you've been through a thing or two yourself." Yuri chuckled, nodding. "Oh, you better believe it. But each time, God somehow found a way to pull me back. I'm not saying it's easy. Faith rarely is. But there's something so comforting about believing that, in some small way, our prayers can help heal this world, even if we can't see the results right away." Beth Ann found herself nodding slowly, the words resonating with her. It's funny, isn't it? Sometimes it feels like we're shouting into a void, but then you remember that maybe, just maybe, someone is listening. Yuri reached across the desk, placing a reassuring hand over Beth Ann's. Exactly. And that's all we need sometimes, just a little reminder that we're not alone. They sat in a comfortable silence for a moment, both lost in thought. Then Yuri stood up, clutching the printed notice. Thank you for helping me with this, Beth Ann. And you know, you're always welcome to join us, even if you just want to come once and listen. Beth Ann let out a small, half-hearted chuckle. I'm not sure if I'm ready for all that, but I'll keep it in mind. Yuri nodded, smiling. No pressure. Just know that the door is open, and you'd be more than welcome. As Yuri headed to the bulletin board outside, Beth Ann leaned back in her chair, watching her go. The words from their conversation lingered, settling deep within her heart. She hadn't been to a prayer group in years, hadn't dared to believe that something so simple could hold any power. But as she watched Yuri pin the notice to the board, she felt a flicker of curiosity, small but undeniable. Maybe I'll just peek in, she murmured to herself, feeling a slight warmth in her chest, just to see what all the fuss is about. It was only a whisper, a small thought that she quickly brushed aside. But even as she returned to her work, she found herself glancing at the bulletin board more than once, that tiny spark of interest refusing to fade. Wednesday afternoon, Yuri found herself back in the clubhouse, arranging chairs and setting out a few snacks for the next gathering. It was going to be a small group, just her, Patty, Bill, and she hoped Ronald again. She had also invited Patricia and Audrey, two other ladies who lived in the park, in case they wanted to join. Just as she finished setting out a plate of cookies, the door opened, and Ronald walked in. He was holding an old paperback Bible and looking a little less weary than usual. He gave her a small smile. Afternoon, Yuri, he said, setting his Bible on the table. I thought I'd come a bit early. I'm glad you did, she replied, waving him in. Helps me know I'm not the only one who's excited about this. Ronald chuckled. I figured it would do me good. Besides, I've been thinking about what you said, about offering up suffering. There's a lot I don't understand, but I like the idea. The door opened again, and in walked Patty and Bill, followed closely by Patricia and Audrey, who were chatting and laughing as they came in. Patricia, with her short silver hair and lively smile, had a bag slung over one shoulder filled with yarn, and Audrey carried a small notebook. Look at this crowd, Patty said with a grin, pulling up a chair. Looks like our little group is already growing. Yuri beamed as she poured tea. I'm so glad you all could make it. Patricia, Audrey, thank you for joining us. Patricia waved her hand dismissively. Oh, we were intrigued the moment we heard about it. I mean, it's not every day you get invited to pray for the whole world. And make new friends while you're at it, added Audrey. That's always a plus. Ronald leaned forward, his brow furrowing slightly. So how does this work exactly? I know we each pick a country, but what do we do after that? Yuri pulled out a few printed sheets she'd made, hoping to provide a bit of guidance. Well, here's what David and Alice Kay, the folks at SufferingWell, suggest. We start by learning about our country, its history, its needs, its culture. Each week, we'll bring a small bit of what we learned and share it with each other. Then, we'll pray over what we've learned, asking God to bring healing and guidance. Patty nodded thoughtfully. Makes sense. If we're going to pray, we might as well know what we're praying for. Patricia set her bag of yarn on the table, a playful smile on her face. And while you're all being serious, I'll be crafting some angels. I thought maybe we could use them as little reminders, maybe even sell them and donate the money to a charity in our chosen countries. Audrey added, we make angel kits too, so people can make their own. Maybe we could get others involved in that way. Yuri's eyes sparkled. That's a beautiful idea, Patricia, Audrey. And you know, that's the spirit of this initiative, to get others involved however we can, whether they can pray just a little bit or a lot. The group began talking over each other, sharing ideas and laughing, already feeling the bonds of friendship forming. Yuri's heart swelled as she watched them connect. But the moment was interrupted by the unmistakable sound of a door creaking open. In walked Ken, the park's quirky character, holding a box under one arm with a label that read Life Cereal. He set it on the table with a satisfied sigh. Hope I'm not late, he said, glancing around. Not at all, Yuri replied, trying to stifle a laugh. Are you carrying cereal? Ken gave her a look of mock offense. This is one of my Bibles. Best place to keep them is a Life cereal box. You know, the bread of life and all that. The group burst into laughter, and Ken took a seat, unfazed by the reaction. I've got all kinds of boxes for my things, Count Chocula, Wheaties, you name it. Keeps them organized. Patty gave him a curious look. What do you keep in Count Chocula? Financial papers, Ken said with a shrug. And electric bills go in Wheaties. Got to keep the energy flowing. They all laughed again, the sound echoing off the clubhouse walls. Even Ronald cracked a smile, shaking his head in amusement. So, Ken said, rubbing his hands together, I hear we're saving the world, one prayer at a time. What do I need to do? Yuri handed him one of the printed sheets. Pick a country, learn about it, and then share what you learn. We'll all pray for each other's countries and ask God to bring healing to the world. Ken nodded thoughtfully. Sounds easy enough. I'll go with Mongolia. Always wanted to know what they're up to there. Patty shared her choice of country with a quiet but confident voice. I've chosen Lesotho, she said. I don't know much about it yet, but I feel drawn to focus my prayers on the young people there, especially those who are facing challenges with education and health. I want them to know they're not forgotten and that someone is lifting them up in prayer every day. The meeting went on, each person discussing potential countries to pray for, sharing bits and pieces of their own lives as they went. Ronald, though quiet, seemed at ease, and Patricia and Audrey fit right in, talking about how they could make craft kits to support the countries. At the end of the meeting, as everyone began to pack up, Yuri felt a sense of satisfaction settle over her heart. She knew that God was working among them, even in the little moments, like sharing a laugh or planning a craft. This group was becoming a lifeline, not only for the world, but for each other. As they left, she watched Ronald linger, his hand resting on his worn Bible. Thank you, Yuri, he said softly, for inviting me. I think this might be what I needed after all. She placed a hand on his shoulder, giving him a reassuring smile. We're glad you're here, Ronald, and I believe you'll find what you're looking for. We all will. With that, he left, and Yuri stood alone in the quiet clubhouse, the unity of the group's laughter still echoing in her mind. This was only the beginning, but it was a good one. Memo from Bill to the How group. Ray, Bible study. The power of prayer for the nations. Scripture focus. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 to 2, Psalm 67, verses 2 and 3, Psalm 72, verse 17. Theme, interceding for nations in need. 1. Introduction. Begin by reading the scriptures above. Reflect on the importance of praying for other countries and communities, especially those in need. Think or write about the impact of intercession and how it aligns with God's desire to bless the nations. 2. Questions for reflection. Why do you think God calls us to pray for the nations? How can we keep our prayers focused on the needs of other countries? In what ways might praying for other nations affect our own faith and perspective? 3. Application. Pray for your chosen country during the week. Research the current needs and challenges facing that nation. Then come together to share what you've learned and lift up those needs in prayer. Close by asking God to grow your compassion for the world and to use your prayers to bring his love to those places.